Hello, everyone. This is Dan Kimbell, patent and trademark attorney. Today I'm talking to a very interesting guest. His name is Evan Tsang, who I've gotten to know through our work together on a medical nonprofit board. And Evan is a IP consultant and a specialist on commercializing technology. Evan is a Caltech trained engineer by background, and his experience spans from very large companies such as General Motors to startup companies founded by PhDs. Evan is the partner of Schuyler Consulting, a 20-plus year HR and finance consulting service company that has helped multiple companies scale their businesses. And he's also founder of Curoba, a regulatory and quality platform company backed by experts. Both companies partner with their clients to focus on value creation, which is what it's all about. Evan has also founded two companies in the healthcare space. With that, I'd like to start our program with Evan. Evan, how are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me, Dan. And it's really nice to be able to chat with you in a forum like this after working together at am I allowed to say Huntington?
You are. Please do.
Great. Yeah, it's been great working with you at Huntington Medical Research Institute, and it's really nice to be able to follow some of that work with being on camera with you in this way. So thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. I've been on the board for about 7 years, and you've been a consultant for about 3 years or so. Is that right?
Yeah, just over two, but yeah, going to be here. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah, so we've been having a lot of fun. Like I said, Evan is really the qualified guy for evaluating technology and seeing where the gaps are. So one of the things really important in IP is, when people get patents, they just focus on what the invention is, but it oftentimes misses what the market needs. So Evan is really a specialist on identifying what additional patent coverage might be needed, and so there we fill in the gaps, and then we can commercialize much better. So Evan, can you walk us through your journey to success? What were some key decisions or moments that made a significant impact on your entrepreneurial path?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So first of all, I started out in big companies. So one of the things that taught me was what the end state looks like, because, startups have a lot of pride in being startups, being nimble, being plucky, being lean, and doing a lot with a little. But at the end of the day, all startups want to end up being one of the big companies, because that's the whole reason you start up a company in the first place.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be a unicorn, don't they?
Yeah, everyone wants to be a unicorn. Everyone wants to be big one day.
And being plucky means sometimes you get plucked, which is not good.
Yes, that is true. It depends on how you get plucked. Sometimes you get plucked in a bad way, and sometimes you get plucked in a good way. But yeah, after working at a couple big companies, General Motors, then Danaher Corp, I entered my first startup. I got called by a recruiter, and they said, "Hey, Evan, there's this well-funded startup in Pasadena." They didn't give me any details at the time because they don't disclose things at first. But I got to know this company and ended up onboarding there. I was employee 20 something or other, and it was called Replenish, and we built a little ocular drug pump for the eyeball. Right. That kind of that's when the startup bug kind of bit me. And
right.
When you're in a startup, one of the things you learn is a lot of different things, but sort of jack of all trades, because you have to wear multiple hats, right? In a big company, focus on one thing and get really, really good and deep in that one area and not worry about all the other areas. But in a startup, if you take that approach, of course, you won't succeed. And as a matter of fact, people who can't wear multiple hats can be failure modes, at small companies.
Yeah.
But I really loved this, building a company. I thought it was more fun than building cars, which is, it's really saying something about me, because I'm kind of obsessed with cars. Now I'm more obsessed with building companies, because I think that's really, really fun. So that's when the startup bug bit me. And I'll be honest, even then I never thought I would start my own company. I always thought, well, I'll just work for a series of startups. But as I did more and more of that, and worked for small companies and started advising small companies, I realized, this is what I want to do for my career now. And so now I would say that I'm split about half, like big company and the startup. But it's really that startup bug, that really the impatience. Like I'm not a very patient person by nature. It's gotten better over the years, but it's that instant gratification or more instant gratification, along with this idea that it would be really fun to build something from the ground up.
Right,
Those are
right.
the two things that I think
Yeah,
help
I can relate to that very well with my startups. And in my journey as a patent attorney, I worked with a lot of small companies as well as big companies, and I learned a lot from observing like the ones that succeeded and the ones who failed. Like the first economic collapse was in 2000 when the dot-com bubble burst, and I saw the companies that survived and those who didn't, and I kind of observed some common features of the successful companies and the companies who didn't succeed. And then the next collapse, of course, was the 2008, 2009 real estate collapse. And that took down a lot more companies. So I went through a couple big cycles. And in the first cycle, I was not yet an entrepreneur. In the second one, I had already started a company. So I was actually feeling a lot of the pressure and pain of the financial collapse of 2008, 2009. But I had learned a lot from the first collapse. So it was very instructive to actually go through the process. And I believe that helps me as an attorney, just having actually lived through it and know what it feels like to actually be a company founder and have to deal with financial issues and survival, not just growth, but survival.
Oh, totally. And I'll use this opportunity to make a quick comment, and that is that, one thing I've really appreciated about working with you at HMRI, and working for you really at HMRI in so many ways, is that, you bring law and IP and business together, right? That's not something that, in my experience, has been true of all the IP attorneys and IP specialists that I've worked with. As is, I guess, reasonably clear in this conversation, I'm not an attorney. I really represent more the technical and business side of things when I work with people. But working with someone like you has been really amazing because you know how to marry those two things together, and we can talk on that basis.
Oh, shucks.
So
Thanks,
I wanted to make
thanks
that
much.
comment because I felt like it would, it was like an appropriate comment, given
Yeah.
what you said.
Well, thanks, Evan. The feeling's mutual. Like working with you is just so much fun. So, Evan and I have become good friends through our work together. So that, if you're on a board, you probably make a lot of your good friends from fellow board members and consultants on board. So it's a great way to make friends, if
Cool.
nothing else, to do good things. So,
Oh, totally.
yeah. Evan, I want to change to focus a little more on IP. So, how has intellectual property played a big role in your clients' businesses and their successes?
Well, first of all, it's critical to success. Both at Skylar and at Kuroba, all of our clients are small. So they're all earlier stage companies. I say earlier because there are some that are, we have clients that are like 2, 3 people. Similarly, we have clients that are dozens of people and are headed towards FDA approval, that type of a thing. Excuse me. And then we also have clients who are technology companies, right? Who don't need FDA approval, to field their products. What's common among all of them is that they're technology based. And so,
right.
Unlike, say, a service-based company where you differentiate yourself by bending over backwards for your clients or for your customers, technology companies exist and require a legal moat around them to protect what's theirs, what they've invented, what they've created. Right. And so for all of our clients, whether they have patents or whether they have, and the patents can be technological, they can be design, or trade secrets in some cases, and or a mixture of all of the above, right?
Right.
IP is really critical because it helps them carve out a place for them to do business. It brings in investment even before they carve out a place in the market for their product. Investors look at that all the time. At Skylar, we're limited partners in a fund. We've also made a couple of investments, somewhat strategically, but also because we believed in the product and the team building it. And we always want to know from an investor standpoint, and all the people I know in venture capital and or in private equity, they always look for that, for a company that's sophisticated in how they understand the IP landscape and how to use the law to help advance their business, right? And so that's why it's critical to, I should say almost all of our clients. We do have a couple service clients where they differentiate on services, but even there, they sometimes have trade secrets because they provide services in a particular way, or they're able to provide it at a lower price because they have something proprietary inside their company that allows them to do that. So IP in all of its forms is important for 100% of our clients in that kind of way.
Yeah, I would say that's true. High growth companies usually are high growth because they have some competitive advantage, and IP is oftentimes that competitive advantage. It gives you maybe some price advantage, some improvements over your competition that are, moats around their company. So it can be very valuable. You touched on trade secrets. Trade secrets are oftentimes better than patents. Trade secrets are valuable because they are kept a secret. And sometimes if you file a patent application basically when you file a patent application, you have to make a full disclosure of the invention. So sometimes it's actually not what you want to do. Sometimes it's better just to keep it a secret because a patent will last only a certain term of years, 20 years maybe. But a trade secret may last much longer, especially if it's something that's very difficult to discover on your own. Maybe it's just too hard to figure it out. So in those cases, trade secrets are very good. So what's your take on trade secrets, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing where I would call you and ask you that kind of question, in the sense that, I think business owners need to have someone who can help them understand the pluses and minuses of either patenting something or keeping it a trade secret, or maybe even timing the patenting, keeping it a trade secret until a certain point, and then, releasing it into public domain. And I say that very deliberately because, you're one of the folks that helped educate me on this idea that, patents are actually a deal that you make with the government. In exchange for a time-limited monopoly, you are putting your technology into the public domain so that the entire world can benefit from the invention you
Right.
And so, I advise clients whenever I can and whenever it's appropriate to not ignore trade secrets, and also to always ask their patent attorneys or their IP attorneys, hey, look, should this really be patented, or should this be a trade secret, and why should it be a trade secret versus a patent, or vice versa?
Right.
And my experience is that the best IP attorneys are the ones who turn around and then say, well, what are your business goals, right? Because the strategy is going to inform, your business strategy is going to inform your IP strategy, and vice versa, right? That discussion that I think needs to happen between a business owner and a business strategist and an IP attorney or an IP expert, who also happens to be an attorney, right? Type of approach. So that's what I advise my clients when they ask those kinds of questions. It starts with like, hey, what are you trying to do with this business? And then we can start talking about how IP can support it, or, because you can use IP either as an offensive tool or as a defensive tool, right? When you're using it as offense, you're pushing into the market, you're being aggressive with, like, perhaps you've got a legal strategy to sue people who infringe on your patents to protect yourself. That's somewhat offensive in nature. Not offensive like in the, I'm offended by, things that you say, but like, offense versus defense, right? And then obviously, using IP as a defensive strategy means that when people start encroaching upon you are able to have legal walls, as it were, to protect against people coming into your market space. Anyway, I hope that I don't know that I completely answered your question, but it was like, what are your thoughts on secrets?
No, it's good. I mean, your viewpoint as a commercialization expert and entrepreneur is very good. I'll give you one example where trade secret used together with patents is very good. I had a client years ago who was doing optics. So they pointed out that in their industry, a lot of times patents are filed with a very kind of general claim, and then what they do is they have one embodiment, but then they may have other embodiments that might be even more valuable, and they don't give the optical prescription. It's kind of like a prescription on your glasses, but they have optical prescriptions, particularly in very complex equipment. There's many, many lenses, and sometimes it's hard to figure out those things like what's the best. Like if you're doing transmission of data, like via optical switching and stuff like that, there's like maybe little tweaks that make it work much better. So that makes it more valuable, and it makes them get the contract. So when they're building equipment and selling, so those combination of patents plus trade secrets can be very, very valuable. So yeah, you should always keep in mind, you can do both. You don't have to choose one or the other. Let's switch gears again and talk about the nature of patents and their geographic nature. So patents, as we know, are filed and obtained in each country, or maybe a European patent. So what is your philosophy on obtaining foreign patents? Evan, do you have any bias or thoughts on that?
Well, if you have a ton of money, just get them everywhere. But if you don't have a ton of money, if you're one of these large multi-billion, multinational corporations, you just cover yourself everywhere that you can. If you're a smaller company, or if you're a actually small company, tiny company, you're going to want to think about, I think, this is my opinion, of course, where you want to do business primarily, and where you think you can do business, right?
Right.
Because it's one thing to say, hey, you know what, we got a bunch of funding from our investors, and we're going to spend this much money, prosecuting and then maintaining patents around the world, because one day we're going to do business everywhere.
Which usually doesn't happen. Sometimes it does. It usually doesn't.
It usually doesn't happen. I think, number one. Number two, there's also larger business questions of like, well, do you partner? Do you or are you going to try to have a subsidiary? Partnerships can often work out, and sometimes that means that you need to own the IP in those geographies, right? Other times it means that you could even potentially, sell into those geographies, like license it with somebody and say, hey, look, why don't you form a company, license the stuff from us for that geography based on this work that's already out there. It just depends on what your business plans versus, your resource pool is, at least to me. And then, do you have wherewithal and the expertise to do business in all these geographies? Because from a practical standpoint, like if you're never going to go do business, let's say in China or something like that, well, then why have a patent there? Is that really going to bring value to your company? Even if you did have a patent there, do you have the wherewithal to protect the IP, right? Because if you're not protected, you can have a patent all day long, but if you don't have money to defend it, it might not be that useful for you to have a patent for certain geographies. Anyway, I guess those are sort of off the cuff thoughts that I have on that. I think many of our clients, both at Schuyler and Kuroba, tend to try to pursue patents sort of everywhere, or at least in the major geographies. Because you don't need to have, you may not need to have coverage, let's say in some smaller countries. So if you've got yourself covered in, say, the United States, the European Union, China, and or Japan and or Canada, sometimes that's enough to make investors happy, for instance, and then you can kind of go from there.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. When people ask me about getting patents in New Zealand or Iceland, I always go, well, the population of Iceland is about 300,000. So unless you're doing something really, really important, maybe to the fishing industry or shipping or maybe banking apps, high-tech banking, you might not want to pursue that. On the other hand, there's other countries like Singapore where They are hubs for innovation in like medical technology,
Yes.
bioinformatics. So, for a country like that, and they're also a segue to the Chinese speaking world. So, sometimes Singapore is a really good country. So it all depends on the business case. Another thing inventors have to really keep in mind and owners have to keep in mind is, once you get a patent, you have to pay annuities. Those are annual payments paid to each country's patent office, and they grow every year. They get higher and higher, and it gets very expensive. I've represented oil companies, and they could spend $500,000 a year on annuities for big patent portfolios. So that's a lot of money. And unless you have a big deep pockets, you may not want to do that. But anyways, that's kind of some general thoughts on foreign patents, and I think every patent has to be evaluated on a case by case basis. There's no blanket rule, basically.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Evan, we all use AI. I use it every day for different tasks in my personal life and my business life. Are you finding yourself using a lot of AI, and how do you think it's going to impact what you do and what your clients do?
I don't use it every day. I'm starting to use it more and more, particularly with automating or at least getting things started, like an email or whatever. Sometimes it'll be, you sit there trying to think about what are you going to say, how you're going to say it, and then you use an AI, like ChatGPT, and it at least gets you off the dime, right? So you might have spent 15 minutes trying to think up the first couple sentences, and then it flows okay from there. But now, like you can do that, and it only takes you a minute, to get that.
It can write some pretty okay first drafts of things.
Right.
I found, yeah.
And I work with people, and I've worked with people who are using it much more extensively, and they have enough of their own content that they've been able to buy and then train their own ChatGPT engine to copy.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I didn't know it had that capacity to train on your own materials.
Yeah, I think
Very
you have
good.
to use an API for that. So you have to be able to, you have to have something of a tech stack to do that, or at least some technical knowledge to figure out how to do that. I don't. But hopefully I'll be using one of my business partners versions of that soon.
Right, right.
But in terms of my thoughts on AI, well, there's two things. One is that it is going to change the world. Certainly,
Yeah,
I think
it already is. Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, it's already changing the world in a lot of different ways. I do also think that it is from an investment and optimism standpoint, a little bit of a fad, in the sense that, I'll draw an analogy that's still in the AI space, right? So when you think about autonomous driving, the Tesla Model S came out in 2012, 2011, 2012. And I think it was for the 2012 model year. But anyway, back then everyone said, hey, look, autonomous driving is just around the corner. We just need to apply lots and lots of money to this.
Right, right.
Collectively, I think just in the United States, we spent somewhere around $50 billion on developing autonomous driving.
Right. There's been a lot of companies who are trying in the US and around the world. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's Waymo, which was, Google/Alphabet's self-driving car. General Motors has Super Cruise. They're going to be releasing Ultra Cruise pretty soon.
Ford has a product too, right?
Ford has a product. Needless to say, Tesla has had one for a while.
And then Mercedes has a pretty good product too, right?
Yeah, they have a very, very good product. They've spent all this money, and they still haven't really turned that corner to where AI is really going to allow you to just go to sleep, right, and arrive at your destination with a half an hour nap or 2-hour nap across LA traffic. When you drive these vehicles, it's clear that there's a lot of situations they don't really know how to handle.
Right, right.
And so I think there was tons of optimism about it. it was probably a little bit overblown in terms of what autonomous driving science could really handle in the short-term future.
Oh,
Um, and I think we're going to find the same kind of things with AI. So we'll be able to take certain tasks and automate them and make them faster, better for humans. But I think this whole idea that, the next Shakespeare is going to be AI is probably a little bit further than
yeah.
the technology is really capable of for the time being, and for a good amount of time going forward, right? There's a
Yeah,
couple.
I don't know. I don't know if you caught the Academy Awards, but Jimmy Kimmel was the MC, and he made a funny joke about uh, resolving the strike, and one of it was not allowing actors to be replaced by AI actors and
Mhm.
screenwriters to be replaced. And he said, "Oh, could the latest Terminator, or excuse me, latest Transformer movie been written by AI?" And he said, "I think so."
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, and then I think I didn't see the Academy Awards, but I think he made a joke also about, some category in the future, best AI actor or best AI written
Yeah, yeah,
screenplay. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of where things are going. I think, you're seeing this a lot in the medical technology space.
yeah,
Um, image processing, AI seems to be very, very, very good at it. There's a case
right.
out there. I can't remember where it was published. It could have been the Journal of the American Medical Association or maybe New England Journal of Medicine, but it was in a fairly major journal, if I recall correctly.
Hmm.
And I may not. But there is a study out there somewhere where computers were able to look at MRI, magnetic resonance imaging
Hmm.
pictures, and able to determine the race of the person, with like something like 95%
Oh, wow.
accuracy.
I haven't heard that. That's interesting.
It's just insane, right? Because this is an internal, like you're looking at a cross section of someone's brain, right? And
Well,
they're able to look at it, AI somehow able to look at it and say, well, this person is of whatever ethnicity
wow,
or
that's
whatnot.
kind of scary.
Yeah, it is kind of scary. And the worst part is that they don't actually know how that works, right? They haven't been able to say, all right, well, it works because it can look at these structures and the following structures, and
Yeah.
this type of structure correlates with East Asian versus African versus
Hmm.
European genetics or what have you. So it's a little bit
Yeah, that's one of the natures of AI.
disconcerting.
I understand that we don't really understand how a lot of it works, like how it's like a black box and it just magically does stuff. But one of the features is AI lies and makes up stuff. And that's a feature where I've experienced it, where I'll ask it something and I know it's wrong, and then I challenge it, and then it corrects itself and gives me the right answer. So it's kind of like a 4-year-old child telling you, "Did you eat that cookie in the cookie jar?" And the child would tell you no, and then you press your grandson a little more, and you find out, well, actually, he did eat the cookie. So I don't know. AI is like a 4-year-old child, but very smart,
If
who knows a lot.
if Yeah, if that, right? So I think the other thing is that a lot of people, particularly sort of in the vernacular, or people who aren't a little bit closer to the technology, think of what we're doing in AI today as a general AI, meaning general artificial intelligence. It
Hmm.
can, pretty soon it'll mimic humans entirely. You know, like when you look at ChatGPT, when you look at the
Hmm.
generative AI, whether it's art or engineering, these are very specific instances of using artificial intelligence. So it's not one of these things where, today you've got ChatGPT sort of like amalgamating, right?
Hmm.
People's writing, um, and then that's today. And then tomorrow they're going to be discovering new theories, right, of science and advancing science in that way. I'm not
Supposedly,
saying
yeah.
AI will never do that, but I think it's sort of, on the one hand, AI is changing the world by making certain tasks easier, faster, better, cheaper, all that.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, I think there's a lot of buzz about it, and I think a lot of people, including investors, are a little bit more bullish on it than they probably sort of
Yeah,
technically should be. But blockchain was another one. Everyone thought everything would have blockchain in it pretty soon, and
right.
there's applications for it. And there's things that people thought blockchain would apply to that it doesn't yet, right? So there was a little bit of extra hype about that. I think we're going through some of the same stuff.
Yeah, I think the pendulum always swings a little too far in each direction. Kind of reminds me of when I used to get the latest version of a Dragon Dictate when I tried to not have to type, and it was always it's 99% accurate, and it never could understand what I was saying. And after a while, I stopped buying the latest version because it never was very good, even though they would always say, "Oh, this latest version is so accurate, I could never get it to work." But now it actually works really well, and it's free, and it's embedded in many products. So I guess that's a case where, a little bit of boy crying wolf, and people get tired of it, but eventually it will get there.
Right.
That's my opinion. I heard the latest version of Tesla self-driving, I think it's version 12 point something, actually feels like it's a real human driving the car. So it's they basically stripped out all the code, and now they're just doing it on a very thin model using AI, and apparently it works scarily good. I don't know, I haven't experienced it, but that's what I've heard others say.
We have a Model S, a 2018 Model S. I wouldn't go that far, like at least my experience so far.
So you've tried the latest version?
As far as I know, I don't actually know the version that I have. I suppose I will look it up on my phone here. But we did turn on the advanced software updates. So theoretically, we have a reasonably recent.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Oh, mine's still on 11 dot something or other.
Well, that's maybe why you're not experiencing the
magic,
the fantastic driving. Who knows?
The last one we got was just over the weekend, though.
Oh, okay. So maybe it is, or maybe it's not available to the general public yet. Who knows?
Oh, that could very much be the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I have. As far as I know, I'm not one of the. We didn't qualify to be like the earliest users, where they have a sort of like the beta tester of the beta testers type of group. But we do have like advanced updates. So if you turn it off, it's a couple versions behind. But if you turn it on, it's not as advanced as the very first users, but you're in the earlier, I guess, segment of that population.
Okay. Well, cool. Anyway. Cool. Time to switch directions again. And questions. So reflecting on your journey, what are some of the most challenging lessons you've learned, and how have these lessons shaped your business or your approach to business?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is marketing's harder than you think it is. And which is, I think, as we talked about before the recording started, I think there is some experience that we're sharing in terms of marketing. Another thing I would say is being able to have the time to take that step back and zoom out a little bit to understand what's happening, sort of more macro view, is really, really key. And I think I always, I've always instinctively known that to be true. But to force yourself to make the time while you're really, really, really busy, right? Yeah. And you've got like a laundry list of things to do that's 100 deep, and you've just been traveling for 2 weeks straight, and like, I don't have time to think about the bigger picture right now. I have a laundry list of 100 things to do. Is sometimes being judicious and slowing down for a moment and saying, all right, let me think about this big picture wise. That'll help me frame, even the right of 100, taking that time to slow down a little bit, think rather than just doing, and then think about how you're thinking as well is really important. So I think those are the two things I would say. Who you choose as your business partners, maybe that's number 3, particularly for small business folks. In a big company, you only have so much control over who you work with. When you're a small company, you have a lot more control because there's not as much infrastructure around you, and there's not like some company that's already got 10,000 people and you're 10,000 and first,
Right.
kind of a thing. And so, choosing people who, it's not just about who get along with you, but also, when the times get tough, when there's money involved, um, behave in a way that is amenable to who you are and your values. Um,
Right.
and that's to say nothing of like, are trustworthy, meaning they're not going to do anything actually shady, but also philosophically, they vibe with you in terms of how you deal with things within the realm of being appropriate, right? Because there's definitely people that they're not doing anything actually shady, but then it's just not how you would deal with it.
Yeah.
Um, and then to find the balance between people pushing you out of your comfort zone, and now you're learning because you're not doing it the way that you thought you were going to, and just knowing that, hey, look, philosophically, that's just not how I operate, right?
Right. Right.
I mean, maybe I can give some examples there, but that's kind of my short answer. Those are the three things I think I would say.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. No, I remember it was a quote that um, Napoleon Bonaparte would, first time he got a letter, he would throw it away because he said, well, why do you do that? Because if it's important, they'll write me another letter. So it's kind of like the focus on the most important things. And
Right.
there's many tasks that will occupy your time,
Yeah,
but probably just a handful of things that you really should focus your time and energy on because the rest don't really matter.
that's
So
right.
the focus and the people, I think people are the most important aspect of any company. One of the things I learned uh, through being an attorney for many years and seeing successes and failures of companies is it's always the people. So a great idea executed poorly is not going to make it, but an okay idea executed well could be very successful in the marketplace. And another idea I've found is that, that old saying, if you build a better mousetrap, people will beat a path to your door. It's actually not very true.
No, no, it's not
It's the
true at all.
marketing is always harder. Getting a patent is easy. I tell people it's selling it is very much harder.
Hmm.
So the marketing is really, it comes down to that. And like, what do people want? It's just kind of a mysterious thing. I was watching a documentary about Stanley, the old maker of vacuum mugs, and how they have been so successful now in marketing their 100-year-old vacuum thermoses that have a different shape. And it was kind of brilliant. Like they brought the brand back. Um, and they invented it, but they brought it back, and now they're the hot new product for the last few years. So it's just kind of like,
All right.
who would have thunk, you
Oh,
know?
totally. No,
Yeah.
I think that's a great point from a marketing standpoint. And you're seeing all these, like the Stanley, I relate to like, you see that picture of the people building the Empire State Building, right? And they're all sat on this girder, like
Right, right. That famous
100
photo.
stories or whatever it is up in the sky. And when you tell me, oh, Stanley Thermos, I think that's the picture I have in the mental
Hmm.
picture I have in my head, right?
Right.
Now it's like all these young people, it's like the trendy thing to have for like people
Yeah.
more than a decade younger than me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
wow, that's quite the turnaround. And I'm not even like, I'm just seeing this now that they've succeeded in rebranding themselves, right?
Hmm.
The people who are the influencers who made this happen, they knew about this like, a while ago, that this was up and coming. And I'm just now seeing, the results of
Yeah, yeah.
that sort of exponential
Yeah,
effort.
we're old guys, so we're not
Yeah,
following all the trendy things. My youngest daughter, who follows all trends, said all the cute girls have Stanley. They have their Stanley when they work out. So it's like, what? That's the
right,
old green one with the handle that my dad used to bring his hot coffee to work in. So
right, that's right.
that's my vision of Stanley, but apparently it's taken off. So um,
There's a meme somewhere of this dad who his daughter asked him for a Stanley Cup, and so the mother bought the Stanley mug that she wanted.
uh,
Dad, the dad bought a replica of the Stanley Cup, as in what you win if you win the championship in the National Hockey League
yeah.
Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was hilarious. And of course, they posted this on the internet, and everyone thinks it's cute and charming and funny. But it does go to show you what marketing does.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, wonderful. So one last question about the future. How do you think the consulting business will evolve in the future, particularly in relation to innovation and IP? Because you're in a consulting business. I mean, I am too. I consult people on IP strategies and whether they should go or no go.
I'll be honest, I don't know exactly where we are on the pendulum right now, or where the pendulum is right now. Number one, I don't think consulting is going to ever really go away. Because there's always going to be a requirement for at least some companies to hire in expertise right now, as opposed to expertise from now on, right? If you need expertise from now on, then you hire. But if you need expertise right now, and then that's it, you're going to turn to a consultant. I think that's one thing. I also think that if you're able to position yourself and have a track record in such a way that, people are calling you enough, and you're basically like, hey, look, I'm only going to consult. I think those consultants are going to be around forever, because there's going to be those folks who have such a track record of results that they're like, I like the lifestyle that consulting affords me, and if you want my knowledge, then this is how we're going to work together. I think those people are also going to be around for a long time. That said, in terms of the future, I think relating this back to AI and to digital technologies, I do think that we're going to find that some, at least low-level consulting tasks and expertise is going to be able to be offered more digitally than in the past with AI.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think it's one of those things where, the vast amount of experience and knowledge that you have, for instance, is going to be replaced by some chatbot, right?
I hope not.
Yeah, I certainly.
Maybe I will be replaced by a chatbot. Maybe I am a chatbot. How do you know?
Well, I don't actually know.
I'm very convincing.
That's true. That's because we've met in person before, but now we're on Zoom, so I don't actually know.
You don't actually know.
That's true. But I think, from that standpoint, I think it'll allow some consultants to have, broader reach. It'll possibly allow the early adopters of this technology to win a first mover advantage into the marketplace. So I think that's in our future. I'm not here to opine as to whether I like it or not, right? I think that's just, the future's coming whether you like it or not, and you might as well create the future rather than be taken over by it. So
things are always changing, that's for sure.
Yeah, so that's where my mind goes when you say, hey, like, what's the future of consulting look like? I think for startups, it'll be the same kind of a thing, right? It'll be, like if you're 10 people, you don't need an in-house attorney. You don't need in-house HR, in-house finance, in-house quality and regulatory. You're 10 people. You need to be focused on making your company more valuable and going up that, going up that value inflection curve. And so your best value is actually always going to be having consulting, right? And perhaps
I agree 100%.
So I think that's where that's going, and we're trying to make sure that we have the kinds of relationships that we need to be able to provide that going forward.
Okay, one last question. Actually, if you can give the audience like 5 pointers, if there's a entrepreneur or somebody has a company and wants to grow it, what would be some pointers you would have? You kind of answered it before, but maybe 5.
To summarize it, 5 things.
Yeah, 5 things that you would advise like a new entrepreneur that she should be doing to succeed.
I think number one, and it's like a big number one. Understand your customers, right? They're the ones who are going to pay you in the end, and if they won't pay you, you have no business.
Right.
And if they won't pay you, you kind of have no business being in that business.
Unless it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah, I mean, that there are those kinds of professions. Like they say, auto racing is one of those, right? How do you make anyway? There's a joke how do you make a small fortune in racing? You start with a big one.
Yeah.
So there are those endeavors, but yeah, customer focus is really, really key. And then knowing what admitting what you don't know. I think that's, customer focus is really, really key. But you're always going to have blind spots as an entrepreneur because you're only a human being.
Right.
And the entrepreneurs that I think are the most successful have the right people around them to make up for what they lack. And sometimes I'll be honest with you, I've watched entrepreneurs succeed sort of in spite of that because they've found the right people who have the strong enough personalities
Yeah.
to challenge the founder of the company, to sort of help bring the company along to do it better, different, or what have you.
Right.
So sometimes it's about that, right? So you asked for 5 things. So that's number 1 is the customer, and number 2 is understanding what you don't know and making up for it. I think number 3 would be understanding how to structure your organization in such a way that it's amenable to that growth that you're going to experience. So basically be prepared to understand where things are going to go. In hockey, one of the things that supposedly made Wayne Gretzky the statistically the number 1 player in all of NHL history, his father always told him, even as a child, don't skate to where the puck is, skate to where the puck is going to be, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah.
So understand that, when you're 2-3 people, you don't need any corporate structure, you don't need anything formal. You can just sort of go at it, and you're going to be fine. A lot of entrepreneurs think that happens all the way up until you're dozens of people, and by then it's kind of too late. Your company is very chaotic already because you haven't built the structures in place.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we help our clients do, both on the Skylar as well as the Kuroba side, is to understand, like, hey, how do I structure my company once I get to half a dozen to a dozen people? And then as we succeed and we grow, what happens at 2-3 dozen people, and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Infrastructure and systems are really important.
Yes. So I think that's number 3. 5 is a lot, Dan.
Okay, well, we could, if you don't have, I think 3 is plenty, unless you have one less gem.
No, I think those are the 3 that come, top of my head. I feel like those are fairly major failure modes that I see among clients.
Right. Yeah. And if you have plenty of money, that helps too. I remember going to a talk by Alfred Mann of the Mann Foundation. He had started many, many companies. So he gave a list. This was at the Athenaeum, in fact.
Oh,
so
nice.
He was talking about, the top 10 things you needed to succeed. And he said, number 1 is money. Number 2 is money. Number 3 is money. And then way back down the list, he got to technology. So yeah, money is pretty important. If you don't have enough money, you can't stay in the game. But you obviously need good ideas, but you actually have to have the wherewithal to succeed. Because if you don't have enough money, you can't hire the people. You can't really get off the ground. It's like a rocket. You need to have enough fuel to break free from gravity. So.
Yes.
But
no, yeah. Money is obviously the lifeblood of any company. It's what everything run.
Yeah.
Well, one of my clients worked for Al Mann, actually, was the chief science officer of one of his largest divestitures. And he was saying that working with Al was really amazing because, in most companies, you sit in a room with some executive and you pitch them something. And if they tell you it's a good idea, it doesn't mean it's funded. It just means that they thought it was a good idea. The thing that was interesting about Al Mann, apparently, is that he would sit in a meeting, people would say, yeah, but, we can only do that if you give us this and that and the other, and it'll cost you, $3 million, whatever it was, right? And if he said, yeah, that sounds good, you could expect to be held to account for those results because you just promised them for $3 million, you'd get X, Y, and Z.
Wow.
And he would just be like, that sounds like a good idea, write you a check, and then say, yep, you told me it was going to be done in 3 months. I'll meet you in 3 months. It better be done because you have your money, right?
Well, that's motivation.
Yeah, absolutely. And money is the thing that allows you to recover from errors as well. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
it,
It's like having a little fat or muscle. If you get sick, you need that. Otherwise, if you're too skinny, you can't survive an injury.
yeah,
Or
that's right.
just or run or traveling through the desert. You need a little bit of that fat and muscle to get through. So, well, Evan, it was a pleasure chatting with you today, and I will see you on the other side with our responsibilities at HMRI. But thank you so much again, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dan.